So on my channel, I've watched a lot of videos related to Poland and its rise and its continued success for the last 30 years. How much it's grown, how strong the economy is, how the military is growing, and how it's becoming, yeah, as you can see from this image, such a major player in Europe, such an important part of it, and potentially could be one of the strongest, if not the strongest country in it, if it continues on its current trajectory and other countries go backwards like has been happening. This video is called Why Poland Will Win the 2030's, and yeah, that's something like I actually agree with. As I said, if it continues on the current trajectory and makes continues the good decision making it's been making, then I can see this happening. And yeah, I'm like fully behind that, man. I can't wait for it actually. But yeah, let's watch this one. You can tell me what you think about this, and let's learn.
90, Poland was one of Europe's poorest countries, but today it stands poised to become a European powerhouse. In the last 3 decades, the lives of everyday Polish people have been transformed as the GDP per capita has soared from $1,700 to over $22,000 today.
And again, just something like that is like, I know there's like so many metrics to measure the success of a country, but that's like such an amazing rise, the way it's continued. Even like when you see like things like COVID and the financial crisis, how it's managed to like mitigate any great loss there and just be on this continued rise. Again, if you compare to the UK, I'd say probably since like the financial crisis, it's just been very stagnant when it comes to GDP per capita. But yeah, very, very good.
That's an economic miracle. But how did a country once struggling under communism become Europe's fastest growing economy? The answer sets Poland up for unprecedented success in the 2030s. And Poland's rise comes at an interesting time for Europe because its historic rivals are growing weaker. Germany, long Europe's economic engine, faces a looming demographic and energy crisis. For decades, the German economic model relied on cheap Russian energy to fuel its industrial base. But after the Ukraine invasion, the shift to more expensive alternatives, like liquid natural gas from the US, Qatar, and Norway, has raised production costs, undermining its competitiveness in global markets. At the same time, projections indicate Germany will lose over 2 million workers by 2035 due to an aging population and low birth rates. And Russia is grappling with severe problems of its own.
We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen.
International sanctions have dealt a crushing blow to its economy. Russia's global trade and finance capabilities have been severely restricted. Compounding these issues, Russia faces its own demographic crisis with high mortality rates and low births.
Yeah, and I mean, the way it's going is like so self-inflicted as well for the deaths, of course, but yeah, that's a crazy difference there.
In 1990, Poland's economic landscape was bleak, a wasteland of inefficient state-owned enterprises and empty store shelves. The country's economy had been ravaged by decades of communist mismanagement. From these ashes, Poland embarked on a radical reinvention that would transform it into Europe's economic dark horse. The transformation began with shock therapy that rapidly transitioned Poland from a centrally planned economy to a free market system. Price controls were removed, subsidies were slashed, and budgets were balanced. Initially, this caused skyrocketing unemployment and collapsed state-owned enterprises, but it paved the way for a new economic order. And as Poland navigated this economic metamorphosis, it faced the 2008 financial crisis. Remarkably, it emerged as the only major European economy to avoid recession during this period. While the EU contracted by 4.5%, Poland's GDP grew by 4.2% in 2008 and 2.8% in 2009.
Yeah, I knew that it handled it well. I never knew it handled it so well. It was the only country not to go into a recession, but like, I mean, maybe we'll find out now, but how did that happen? Was that just good decisions by the government? How did they insulate themselves from that?
In 2008 and 2.8% in 2009. This resilience stemmed from the Polish financial system being in the perfect posture. Its banks had minimal involvement in the subprime mortgage market and complex financial instruments like mortgage-backed securities. Polish banking regulators imposed high capital adequacy ratios and conservative lending practices. Additionally, it had not adopted the euro yet. And so, the Polish zloty's flexible exchange rate allowed it to depreciate during the crisis, boosting export competitiveness and cushioning the economy against external shocks.
Nice.
Simultaneously, their recent accession into the European Union opened up new funding sources. EU grants were channeled into infrastructure development and modernization products, transforming the country's landscape. The construction and real estate sectors boomed, creating jobs and stimulating economic activity. Poland's workforce became increasingly attractive to international companies. The country emerged as a key destination for global service centers, with major corporations setting up operations to leverage the skilled labor force at competitive costs.
That's one thing I have seen is like people mention that a lot of Poland's growth is down to the EU being part of the EU and get money, but a lot of countries in the EU have got money from the EU, but not been able to manage it well, made bad decisions. But it seems like Poland's just made all the right decisions and made the most of that money, really like invested it in the right ways and been able to become a lot more prosperous.
And for 3 consecutive decades, foreign direct investment surged. Poland's GDP per capita skyrocketed from $1,700 in 1990 to over $15,000 by 2020, representing an average annual growth rate of nearly 4%. This meteoric rise made Poland one of Europe's most successful post-communist economies, and it's now a key manufacturing hub with a central location within the Union. For most of its history, Poland has been squished between German and Russian empires. But now, at the crossroads of Eastern and Western Europe, Poland has become a crucial transit hub, facilitating the movement of goods and sitting at the center of Europe's automotive and electronics supply chains. The Polish ports of Gdansk and Gdynia have experienced remarkable expansion, with container throughput at Gdansk more than doubling since 2010. This has been supported by investments through China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now that causes some red flags within NATO, but Chinese ownership is more limited than in other ports like Piraeus in Greece. Polish leaders are cautious about getting into bed with the CCP because they're allies with Poland's #1 security threat, Russia. While other European powers struggle with energy dependency, Poland is executing an energy independence strategy that strengthens its geopolitical position and economic resilience. The cornerstone of Poland's energy revolution is the Baltic Pipe project, a strategic gas pipeline connecting Poland directly to Norwegian gas fields. Completed in 2022, this pipeline delivers 10 billion cubic meters of gas annually, dramatically reducing Poland's dependence on Russian supplies. As much of Europe scrambles for alternatives to Russian energy, Poland's LNG infrastructure further reinforces this energy security. The LNG terminal at Świnoujście, operational since 2016, has been steadily expanding its capacity from an initial 5 billion cubic meters to 8.3 billion cubic meters in 2024. A second terminal at Gdansk is in development, potentially adding another 4 to 8 billion cubic meters of import capacity. These facilities allow Poland to import gas from global suppliers, including the United States and Qatar, diversifying its energy sources beyond Europe. Gas imports from Russia, which once accounted for over 60% of Poland's supply, are scheduled to be completely eliminated by 2026. Oil dependency is following a similar trajectory, with Polish refiner PKN Orlen already reducing Russian oil imports from 90% in 2013 to approximately 30% today, with plans for complete elimination. Poland is also aggressively pursuing nuclear power development. The government has approved plans for 6 nuclear reactors, with the first unit scheduled to come online by 2033. This nuclear push positions Poland to not only achieve energy independence, but potentially become a net energy exporter to neighboring countries still struggling with Russian dependency.
That's like quite amazing, like the foresight like Polish leaders are having to actually do things like this. Like it's like again, I see even in Germany, like they were closing down all their nuclear power plants by talking about because of pressure from green energy fans, even though they say that like nuclear energy is one of the most efficient and cleanest energies. Poland's just doing everything right. Again, like is there like any like people going against that? Any sort of like Green Party that are like not happy with that? Is there anything like that? People protesting things like that? It just seems like everybody's pulling in the right direction in Poland as opposed to every other country where every country's so split politically and just spend more time arguing amongst each other rather than trying to better the country.
This strategy stands in stark contrast to Germany's approach, which has left Europe's largest economy vulnerable to energy shocks and Russian leverage. While Germany scrambles to replace Russian gas with coal, Poland's foresight has positioned it as a model of energy security in the region. This independence gives Poland more control over its foreign policy and military strategy. Poland's defense spending is set to surpass 4% of GDP, far surpassing the 2% requirement for NATO. It aims to forge a shield for Eastern Europe and reshape the balance of power in the region. By 2035, Poland plans to double its military personnel to over 300,000, creating a modern, well-equipped force capable of defending its interests and contributing to regional security. The Polish military's procurement drive includes orders for 1,000 K2 tanks and 288 Chunmoo artillery rocket launchers from South Korea, along with 96 Apache helicopters, 250 upgraded Abrams tanks, and 48 Patriot air defense missile batteries from the United States. And this massive military expansion is attracting foreign investment, particularly from South Korea. The partnership includes technology transfers, which will enable Poland to manufacture K2 tanks domestically, fostering the growth of its own defense industry. Polish General Wisła Kukula has repeatedly emphasized the need for the country to prepare its forces for a full-scale conflict. Poland's military expansion primarily aims at bolstering defenses along its eastern border with Belarus and Kaliningrad, and this gives Poland a larger seat at the table within NATO and develops its domestic defense industry. As it becomes both a consumer and producer of military technology, it will open up new export markets in the future. So, Poland is now Europe's most overlooked military and economic power, with a larger army than Britain, France, or Germany, and living standards that, when you adjust for purchasing power, are on par with Japan's. The traditional European powers are struggling with their own crises, which means the power structure of the continent is about to shift. For decades, Germany dominated economically, Britain provided financial leadership, and Russia loomed as the Eastern giant. But that world is crumbling, and Poland is stepping into the void. Countries like the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and the Baltics increasingly look to Warsaw, not Berlin, for leadership on regional security and economic coordination. As the United States seeks reliable partners for containing Russian influence, Poland's military buildup and strategic position make it an indispensable ally. China, too, recognizes Poland's economic significance, carefully balancing investment opportunities against NATO sensitivities. But perhaps most significantly, Poland proves that the European project does not require surrendering national sovereignty over to Brussels. By maintaining control over its energy policy, defense spending, and economic strategy, Poland demonstrates that EU membership and national strength can coexist. The 2030s will be the decade where a country that was wiped off the map 80 years ago becomes the continent's most dynamic force.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like, again, I'm like so envious, like when I see it compared to the UK, which I always say is just going backwards. If anything, Poland's just powering forward, making all the right decisions in every part of life. Yeah, tell me again, like being Polish, like, how do you feel about this? Is there any negatives? Is there any worries that you have for the future, or is it all positive? If it continues on this way, it's just going to be like the strongest country in Europe, and it's well deserved as well by making all these decisions, and yeah, just putting Poland first and just doing what's best for the country. I love it. So tell me what you think about this. Thanks.